My name is Eleanor Hart. I'm 78 years old, and on the night of my granddaughter's birthday, I stood outside my son's house in the rain. The gate had closed with a hollow click behind me, the kind of sound that tells you you're no longer welcome. I held a small box wrapped in silver paper against my chest, the paper softening as water seeped through. A message had buzzed on my phone minutes earlier, Derek's voice frozen in text. "Wait outside. We're not ready for you yet." I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, trying to balance on the slick pavement. The porch light glowed warm, but the door never opened. Inside, I heard laughter, the clink of glasses, the faint notes of a song I remembered teaching Derek when he was Marin's age. My coat grew heavier with every drop, as if the storm itself had chosen sides. Neighbors know me here. Old Ray across the street lifted his curtain just enough for our eyes to meet. For a second, I thought he'd wave me in or at least nod. Instead, he let the fabric fall, leaving me with nothing but the hammering of the rain. I pressed the gift closer to my chest, whispering to myself, "Hold on, Eleanor, just hold on." My hair clung to my cheeks, my shoes squelched when I shifted, and the smell of wet asphalt rose around me like a reminder of every other time I had waited for someone who never came. Minutes stretched. 7 o'clock turned to 7:40. My phone stayed dark. The silver paper sagged, corners bleeding into mush. I felt the sting of humiliation sharper than the cold water soaking through my sweater. Something inside me, something that had stayed quiet for decades, leaned forward that night. When I finally turned away from the house, I wasn't just walking home through a storm. I was walking into a reckoning I had avoided for far too long. I hung my soaked coat on the back of a chair and listened to the drops patter onto the wooden floor. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the steady tick of the clock above the sink. I set the ruined gift box on the counter, the silver paper peeling away, water pooling beneath it like evidence of the night. My fingers trembled from the cold, but the ache inside was sharper. Silence had been their answer to me, and it cut deeper than the rain. I reached for the leather notebook that never left my kitchen table. Its cover was worn smooth from years of bills and notes. I opened to a clean page and wrote in thick black ink, "They left me in the rain. I will not forget." The words bled slightly, sinking into the paper like they belonged there. For a long moment I stared at them, steadying my breath. A line had been crossed. I felt it as clearly as the chill in my bones. It wasn't anger exactly, but something colder. Clarity. The kind you don't come back from. I turned through older pages, notes on mortgage payments when Derek had fallen behind, tuition checks, medical bills, groceries. My handwriting was everywhere, my sacrifices stacked in neat columns of dates and dollar signs. Each entry carried a reason, a little excuse scribbled in the margin. I had always told myself it was what mothers did. Tonight, that story collapsed. I closed the notebook with a sharp slap and slid it to the center of the table. Tomorrow, I would carry it to the bank. Tomorrow, I would sit across from someone and say, "This ends here." For years, I had believed protecting myself meant losing my family. But in that dim kitchen, with water dripping from my coat to the floor, I saw the truth. They had already left me outside. The next morning, the sky was still gray, the street slick with leftover rain. I wrapped my notebook in a scarf and carried it under my arm as if it were something fragile. The sign of Cedar Ridge Credit Union glowed faintly when I pushed through the glass doors. Warm air rushed against my face, smelling of coffee and carpet cleaner. At the counter, I asked for Mrs. Keating, the senior officer who had handled my account for years. She appeared from her office with her glasses perched low and gave me the kind of smile people reserve for birthdays or funerals. "Eleanor," she said softly. "Come in." I placed the notebook on her desk, opened it to the page with last night's words, and then turned further back. Line after line, month after month, payments I had made for Derek and Sonia, mortgage late fees, tuition, insurance premiums. I didn't need to explain the story, the numbers told it. Mrs. Keating studied the entries, then looked at me with careful eyes. "What do you want me to do?" My voice surprised me. It didn't shake. "Remove Derek and Sonia as authorized users. Cancel every card they carry in my name. From now on, no one touches these accounts but me." She tapped her pen against the paper. "You understand, they'll find out quickly." "I expect them to," I answered. "Some lessons need to be sharp." She nodded and began typing, the keys clicking like small hammers. I signed the forms she slid across the desk, each signature a weight lifted from my chest. She set up new two-factor codes and placed fresh cards into my hand. When it was done, I closed the notebook and tucked it back under my arm. "Mrs. Keating's voice was kind but firm. "You've taken back your ground." Walking out into the damp air, I felt lighter than I had in years. For once, I wasn't carrying my family's debts on my back. I was carrying only myself. 2 days later, I sat in the waiting room of Caldwell and Myers, the law office that smelled faintly of paper and lemon polish. My notebook rested on my lap, though by now I hardly needed to open it. Every figure inside was already carved into me. Mr. Caldwell called me in. He was a steady man with silver hair, the kind of lawyer who believed more in listening than talking. I placed the notebook on his desk, just as I had with Mrs. Keating, and folded my hands. "I need to revise my trust," I said. "And my power of attorney?" He adjusted his glasses. "Tell me what you'd like changed." "My son and his wife no longer have any authority. I want their names removed. The sole beneficiary will be my granddaughter, Marin, when she graduates high school. Until then, the bank trust department will manage things. I want no loopholes, no back doors." For a moment, he simply studied me. "That's a decisive step." "It's a necessary one," I replied. "If my son sees me only as an account, then I'll answer him in the language of accounts. But Marin, she still sees me as a person. That matters." He leaned back in his chair. "You're within your rights. I'll prepare the amendments. It will mean that Derek has no claim if anything happens." "That's the point," I said, sharper than I intended. "He's had too many claims already." The pen felt heavy in my hand as I signed the first set of documents. Each stroke was deliberate, almost ceremonial. By the time I set the pen down, I felt something inside me settle, like a door clicking shut after years of being left open. Caldwell gathered the pages into a neat stack. "You've drawn a line. Mrs. Hart. Make sure you're ready to keep it." "I am," I answered, and I meant it. When I stepped back outside, the air was cool, the rain finally clearing. The street glistened, washed clean, as if the town itself understood what I had just done. That Saturday afternoon, I needed milk, so I walked down to Oakmart, the grocery store that always smelled faintly of bread and disinfectant. As I entered, I caught sight of Sonia and Marin in the checkout line, 2 registers over. Their cart was half full, cereal, fruit, paper towels, a cake box with a bright sticker still clinging to the side. I hesitated, then drifted toward the dairy aisle, not wanting to be noticed. Still, I couldn't stop my eyes from following them. Sonia swiped a credit card, the one I knew carried my name as guarantor. The register beeped once, then displayed the word declined. The cashier, a young man with hair in his eyes, looked uncomfortable. "Do you have another card, ma'am?" Sonia tried again. The same beep, the same refusal. Her face flushed red. She pulled out her wallet, digging for something else, but I could see her hands shaking. Marin stood quietly, backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked from the cashier to her mother, then down at the cart. Without a word, she reached into her pocket and laid a crumpled $10 bill on the counter. "This will cover the milk and bread," she murmured. The boy rang it up quickly, sliding the rest of the items aside. Sonia pressed her lips together, eyes darting as if searching for an escape route. When she finally noticed me at the end of the aisle, our eyes met for the briefest second. There was no anger in her gaze, only a flicker of shame. She lowered her head and gathered the small bag, leaving the rest behind. Marin lifted the handle of the bag and walked beside her, steady, almost protective. I stayed where I was, hands gripping the cold metal of my cart. Part of me wanted to step forward, to ease the sting, but I held still. This was the weight of choices, falling where it belonged. When they passed me on their way out, Marin's eyes caught mine. She didn't smile, didn't frown. She just looked, clear, steady, and older than her years. The phone rang that evening just as I was pouring tea into my favorite chipped mug. I knew who it was before I picked up. Derek's number glowed on the screen, the same digits I had answered without hesitation for decades. This time, I let it ring twice before lifting the receiver. "Mom." His voice came fast, sharp, already carrying accusation. "What the hell did you do at the bank? Sonia's card got declined in front of everyone today. You embarrassed us." I set the mug down carefully, letting the steam rise between us. "I did what I should have done years ago," I said. "You can't just cut us off like that," he snapped. "Do you know how hard things are right now? You left us stranded." The words stung, but not the way he meant them to. "Stranded," I repeated. "Do you remember Thursday night? Do you remember telling me to wait outside your house while the rain poured down? That was stranded." Derek. Silence filled the line. I could hear him breathing, quick and uneven. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. "It wasn't like that, and we weren't ready. That's all. You're twisting it." "No," I said. "I'm finally untwisting it. I won't be the safety net you forget until you need me. Not anymore." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "We need to talk. In person?" "Yes," I agreed, "but it will be on my terms. Thursday night, 7 o'clock, at your house. I want Sonia there. And Marin. No excuses, no interruptions. If you want to speak, you'll sit with me at the table and you'll listen as much as you talk." He muttered something under his breath, then forced out, "Fine." I ended the call before he could say more. The tea had cooled, but I drank it anyway. It tasted stronger than usual, like something bracing me for what was to come. Thursday night came with a thin drizzle, enough to slick the streets but not enough to hide the tension in my chest. I carried a plain envelope under my coat, the kind used for bills, heavy with the pages I had copied from my notebook. When I reached Derek's front door, Marin opened it first. She gave me a quiet nod, a small kindness I clung to. The dining room table was already set. Sonia had arranged plates and glasses, a casserole steaming at the center, salad off to the side. Derek poured water into my glass as if the simple act might smooth everything over. Marin folded napkins and placed one carefully in front of me before sitting down. We began to eat, the clatter of forks louder than the words none of us wanted to start. Derek finally broke the silence. "You didn't have to go this far. Mom, we could have talked." I slid the envelope across the table. It landed in front of him with a soft thud. "We've talked for years. These are the times I bailed you out. Every mortgage payment, every tuition bill, every grocery run, dates, amounts, all of it." Derek's face tightened. He didn't open the envelope. Sonia reached for it, then pulled her hand back. Her voice was low. "I should have stopped it sooner. I saw you outside that night. I couldn't bring myself to face it. I met her eyes. For the first time, she didn't look defensive, only ashamed. "This isn't punishment," I said, my voice steady. "It's the truth laid bare. I won't keep carrying it. If you want me at this table, it has to be as your mother, not your bank." No one spoke for a long time. The casserole cooled in its dish. Marin's gaze shifted between us, her expression older than 16. Finally, Derek pushed back his chair. "So what happens now?" I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. "That depends on whether you're ready to hear me, because next comes the part where I stop owing you comfort." The room grew heavier after my words, as if the walls themselves were waiting to see what Derek would do. He leaned forward, pressing his palms flat on the table. His jaw was tight, the muscle twitching with every breath. "You've humiliated us," he said. "Do you understand that? People talk. Sonia couldn't even pay for groceries without being embarrassed. You've made us look weak." I kept my hands folded in my lap. "I didn't humiliate you, Derek. Your choices did. All I did was stop covering them up." His eyes flared. "You've always been dramatic. You think this proves a point? All it proves is you'd rather watch your family struggle than help." I let the silence stretch, let his anger echo against the walls. Then I leaned forward just enough for my voice to carry clearly. "No, Derek. All it proves is that I've finally learned the difference between help and enablement. I don't owe you comfort anymore." The words landed like a strike. Sonia's fork slipped from her hand, clattering against her plate. Marin sat very still, her eyes fixed on me, as though she'd been waiting for someone to finally speak aloud what she already knew. Derek's face reddened. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For once he had no quick defense, no sharp retort. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy with recognition, the kind he didn't want to admit. I rose from my chair, smoothing the front of my coat. "I'm not shutting the door on you," I said quietly. "But if you want me in your life, it has to be with respect. Not demands, not silence. Respect." Sonia reached across the table and touched Derek's arm, urging him to stay seated. Marin whispered, almost to herself, "She's right." I walked toward the door, each step steady, unhurried. Behind me, no one moved to stop me. Outside, the drizzle had eased into a mist, and for the first time in years, I felt the air clear inside my own chest. Weeks passed, and the silence between Derek and me stretched long. I heard about them in fragments, through neighbors, through whispered updates from Marin when she found a chance to visit me after school. Their mortgage fell behind again. Derek had tried negotiating with the bank, but without my name on the account and without my steady deposits, the answer had been firm. Sonia picked up extra hours at the clinic. Derek sold his second car, the shiny one he bought last year with a loan I had quietly co-signed. That loan was now his, a loan to shoulder. Marin told me about evenings when dinner was canned soup and toast, about Sonia carefully dividing bills on the kitchen table, pushing envelopes around like puzzle pieces. Derek grew restless, pacing the house, snapping at the smallest noise. He had always believed stability was guaranteed, but now he felt the ground shifting beneath him. One Saturday, as I watered the geraniums on my porch, I saw a "for rent" sign go up 2 houses down. By the next week, Derek's home bore a similar sign, "for sale." The bright red letters stood in the yard like a confession. I stood at my window and watched strangers walk through the property, measuring rooms, opening closets. I wondered if Derek was hiding upstairs, refusing to face the truth, or if he was already planning where to place his furniture in a smaller space. Marin came by the following day. She sat at my kitchen table, tracing circles on the wood with her fingertip. "We're moving, Grandma," she said, "to an apartment near the high school. It won't be as big, But I don't mind. At least it's honest. Her words struck me with quiet force. I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. For the first time, I realized she didn't resent me. She respected me. Outside. The sign in their yard swayed slightly in the breeze. It wasn't triumph I felt watching it, but relief. For once, the weight of their choices was on their shoulders, not mine. It was a gray morning when an envelope slid through my door. My name was scrawled across it in Derek's uneven handwriting. I carried it to the kitchen and set it beside my tea, staring at it as though it might vanish if I looked away. Inside was one page, folded twice. The ink bled in places, his letters cramped, as if the weight of apology pressed against his pen. Mom, I need to say I'm sorry. The words were blunt, unpolished. That night at the gate, I knew you were out there. I didn't come because I was ashamed. I blamed you instead of facing myself. I let Sonia carry the embarrassment, and I let Marin watch. You were right to stop us. We should have stood on our own long ago. He wrote about the apartment they had found, small, crowded, but closer to Marin's school. He admitted the nights had been lean, the bills relentless. Every time he sat at the kitchen table with nothing left in his wallet, he said he thought of my notebook, of the careful rows of numbers he had ignored. I can't undo the years, but I want to try. I've started paying back debts, little by little. I don't expect forgiveness right away. I just hope you'll see me as more than the son who failed you. I folded the letter again and slid it into the back of my notebook, not among the records of money lost, but at the end, where the pages were still blank. It didn't erase the hurt, but it was something new, an admission, a beginning. For the first time in years, I felt a quiet release, as though the burden I had carried had finally shifted off my shoulders. I keep Derek's letter tucked in the back of my notebook. Some evenings, when the house is quiet and the kettle hums, I take it out. I don't read every line anymore. I don't need to. Just the feel of the paper in my hands is enough to remind me that truth was finally spoken. Life has taken on a different rhythm. I tend to the garden out front, coaxing geraniums into bloom. Twice a week I volunteer at the library, shelving books while children whisper in the aisles. In the evenings, Marin comes by, her backpack heavy with homework, her laughter filling the spaces that used to echo with silence. She sits at my kitchen table, the same table where I once tallied debts and disappointments. Now it holds lighter things, her sketches, my crossword puzzles, the smell of fresh bread cooling on the counter. Neighbors notice me more these days. Old Ray from across the street brought over a pot of flowers one morning. His voice was awkward, his eyes lowered. I saw you that night, he admitted. I should have said something. I told him he was saying it now, and that was enough. The memory of the rainy evening hasn't disappeared, but it no longer stings the way it once did. Instead, it feels like a marker in the road, a place where everything turned. People believe strength comes from endless sacrifice, but I've learned it also comes from knowing when to stop giving yourself away. I don't know what the future will bring for Derek and Sonia. That story belongs to them. What I know is this: I no longer live on the outside of my own life, waiting for someone else to open the door. I stepped inside, and I stayed. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.